stepdaughter hates me for breaking their family up, smashed the teddy I gifted, and now tries to avoid me at all costs. I'm 27, and this is the wild story of how I became the villain of a family, at least in the eyes of an angry 8-year-old, Jane. Chase, my boyfriend, is 33, and he has 4 kids, Jane, his eldest at 8, Alex, 5, Chelsea, 2, and baby Jessica, 9 months. Their mother is Willow, 31, Chase is now ex. Here's how I met Chase, and how things spiraled. It all began when I took my niece, nephew, and younger cousins to the park one sunny afternoon. That's when I noticed a couple nearby arguing while their kids played, oblivious to the tension. Willow's voice cut through the breeze. Please tell me you did not forget the diapers? How am I supposed to change them now, hey? With leaves? The baby pooped itself. Can you go back to get them, honey? Her voice rose as Chase just stood there, exhaustion on his face, mumbling that he was too tired to walk 6 streets back for a pack of diapers. What do you mean you can't walk back? I was the pregnant one, not you, she snapped. She stormed off, muttering, leaving Chase holding the baby with confusion written all over his face. I felt bad and couldn't help but approach him, asking if she always yelled at him like that. He groaned. Ever since she was pregnant with their 4th, Willow's patience had been razor thin. That's not normal, you know, I said gently. Pregnancy's never an excuse to treat someone like crap. Here, you want a diaper? I have a spare. He laughed, relieved, and accepted my help. We chatted as he changed baby Jessica, such a cute little thing, bright eyes watching me as I smiled down at her. Willow returned, a bit surprised to find another woman helping her husband, but she brushed it aside with a poised smile. She was never the jealous type. In fact, she even befriended me on Facebook and Instagram right then and there. The next week, I bumped into Chase and Willow at the pub. Their first date night since Jessica's birth. When Willow disappeared to the bathroom, I leaned over and, half joking, asked if Willow still nagged him so much. Yeah, he sighed. Don't worry, I grinned, if she can't treat you right, I will. Just don't tell her, or she'll get mad. He burst out laughing, a real, genuine laugh. There was a spark. From there, something started between us. That spark grew out of control. Chase and I began secretly dating behind Willow's back. We lied, we snuck around. For months, we played at being normal until it all exploded in December. Willow came home one day, Jane beside her, to find Chase and I cuddling on the sofa. Instantly, chaos erupted. Willow screamed, her face twisted in betrayal, and poor Jane burst into tears, sobbing alongside her mother. Chase stammered, trying in vain to explain, but the truth was glaring. Nobody in that room was buying his innocence. From upstairs, Alex heard the yelling and peered down, confusion and worry all over his 5-year-old face. Jane, still crying, pointed at me and shrieked that it was my fault. Alex's little shoulders sagged, and he slinked away. The guilt in my chest was crushing. I tried to stay calm and told Willow we were sorry, but we couldn't argue like this in front of the kids. My plea only lit her rage. If you care so much about the kids, why did you break up their family? I finally found happiness after the hell I've been through and you ruined it, just because you couldn't find anyone and had to steal someone else's. Right then, Willow realized Jane was watching everything. Tears streaked down mother and daughter's faces as Willow tried to apologize to her kids for exposing them to the fight. Jane's words cut me deeper than her mother's yelling. It's okay, Mom, it's not your fault she's horrible. How does a 7-year-old know how to weaponize words like this? I knew then that Willow's pain had spilled over onto Jane. I apologized, told Jane no adult should argue in front of them, and tried, foolishly, to explain myself. Jane glared at me. You and Daddy shouldn't make Mommy angry if you don't want her to shout. You're a fat pig. Get lost. She slammed her tiny fist onto the door and stormed off. Devastated, I tried to speak to Jane again later, fully apologizing for breaking up her family, hoping we could put the past behind us for the kids' sake. Alex and Chelsea forgave me. Jane never did, she only ignored me. Eventually, after being kicked out, Chase filed for divorce a few days later. The custody battle was rough, but they got 50-50 in the end. I offered up my house, big enough for Chase and the kids. The first night, trying to make things easier, I greeted each child with a hug. Jane yanked her siblings away, hissing that I hurt Mommy and she didn't want me there. They only came because they were forced. I'd gotten them all custom teddies with their names embroidered, a sweet welcome from my sister's own hands. Chase offered to pay, but I insisted. Jane glared at hers, sneering that it was ugly and that her teddy from Mummy was better. All I wanted was for her to feel safe and cared for. But Jane made it clear, she wasn't about to let me in. I tried to remind her it wasn't her job to take care of how her mother felt, but she cut me off. I want to look after Mommy forever, even if she says she doesn't need me to. I'm not forced. She stormed off, clutching her own bear. And then, the final blow, Jane stomped into the living room, picked up the teddy I'd made for her, and pulled at the seams until stuffing spilled out like snow. Without a word, she tossed the ruined bear aside and marched to her room. I crumpled in my own room, tears spilling down my face for a welcome gift destroyed, for a bond I can't seem to make. Every time Jane visits, it feels like war. I know I hurt her mother. I know I broke something in her world. but all I want is for her to trust me, to maybe, someday, accept me. Every effort, school events, little presents, ends the same way, with her running off, angry, hurt, unreachable. How do I fix this? How do you mend the broken pieces of a family when you're the reason they shattered? Every time Jane sees me, she melts into a tantrum, demanding to know why I'm even there and insisting she won't stop until I leave. This happens at every family event, forcing me to leave in tears as everyone turns to stare, their eyes sharp with judgment. She's even skipped her own siblings' events just because she knew I would be present, never hesitating to announce, "I won't go if she's going." Willow, her mom, is relentless. She tells me, "You should have thought about this before breaking up the family," and all I can do is nod, apologize, and quietly accept that somehow, I deserve this, being punished and now ostracized by my boyfriend's family. They won't have me at family gatherings anymore because Willow insists Jane needs to feel safe, and Jane bursts into tears whenever I arrive. Eventually, Jane warmed up to Chase, her dad, but her hatred for me only deepened. Just last month, Chase and I showed up to celebrate Jane's birthday. Chase was the one invited, but I went along, hoping just maybe things would be smoother. The instant she saw me, Jane erupted, screaming and weeping, accusing me of ruining her birthday. She actually ripped open my gift, smashed the doll into pieces, flung it into the bin, and declared it the worst present ever. I could barely hold myself together. Willow's icy voice cut through the chaos. "No one told you to cheat with my ex-husband and break up the family. If she doesn't want you here, leave. I only invited you both so you wouldn't try to accuse me of parental alienation." Then the adults joined in, voices raised and pointed. Willow's grandfather stormed up, yelling that I'd broken the family and manipulated Chase, while Chase's own mother tried to physically escort me from the house, with his father at her side. Now Jane avoids being at home with me whenever she can. She'll get up, get ready, have breakfast, and then disappear to her grandparents, my parents, her maternal grandparents, or anywhere else she can to avoid the house until late at night. She demands sleepovers just to get time away from me and Chase during our custody days. Chase tried to sue Willow for parental alienation, but the judge determined that unless Jane was actually sleeping at Willow's during our custody time, her visiting her mother and other relatives wasn't technically a violation. I know how badly I've messed up. I tried to call a therapist for help, only for Willow to threaten legal action if I tried to parent Jane myself. She'd already put the kids in therapy long ago. The therapist apparently said that while bonding with Chase is good for Jane, she doesn't have to like me if she doesn't want to, as long as she remains civil and won't take her feelings out on potential future half-siblings. I'm left constantly wondering, how do I get Jane to stop avoiding me, to stop hating me? How do I help her understand that she doesn't need to be afraid of what her mother thinks about me? Chase is 33. I'm 27. Jane is 8, Alex is 2, Jessica just 9 months, and Chelsea is 5. There's also the babysitter, she's 20, my mum is 60. Just recently, Chase and I had a rare date night. I went out of my way to plan everything. I hired a babysitter to watch his kids while we went out for dinner out of town. Chase had simple, clear rules. Children should be in bed by 11 p.m., no fizzy drinks, no friends or strangers invited over, no alcohol, and the children shouldn't be taken out after 7 p.m. Completely reasonable. I told the babysitter I'd made chicken nuggets, there were lollipops, packets of crisps, sweets, a bowl of fruit, and I'd even made cheesecake if they were hungry. I told her not to serve all the treats at once, just to offer options. To make things easier, I bought juice cartons with straws and left a detailed list of what each child needed. I left feeling confident and informed her we might be a bit late due to possible traffic. 2 hours later, half an hour later than planned, but after letting her know and apologizing, I returned to chaos. There she was, feeding Jane, Alex, and Chelsea cans of Coke and 3 packets of Smarties each. And these weren't our Smarties, the babysitter must have bought them herself. The Cokes were also from the topmost shelf in the fridge, which only Jane could reach. Chelsea had Coke dribbling down her shirt, chocolate smeared on her mouth. Alex came straight to me, clutching his stomach and crying. I couldn't find Jessica at first. Panic rising, I darted around until I found her in the living room cot, gnawing her way through a whole banana. I nearly lost it. Jessica is only just starting solids, she can only eat thin slices of apples or bananas, which was clearly written on my list. Chase took the banana away, and Jessica wailed. That could have been the end of it, but Chase was furious to discover the babysitter had also brought beer into our house and drank it there, and then left our children barely more than babies, home alone. Jane, only 8, was left in charge while the others, Alex, 5, and Jessica, just a baby, were unsupervised. Anything could have happened. Chase immediately fired her, giving her only half her fee and telling her in no uncertain terms that what she'd done was unacceptable. I completely lost my composure as well, furious that she had thrown our family's safety out the window. Her promises that it wouldn't happen again fell on deaf ears. I refused to risk the children's safety ever again. After she left, Chase and I found the children still awake. We cleaned Chelsea up, took her to the bathroom to wash, ushered the rest upstairs and settled them in bed. Sometimes, in moments like that, standing in the quiet aftermath of chaos, I look at those kids and realize how precious, and how painfully complicated, all of this is. Earlier today, I found myself reprimanding our babysitter, while Jane and Alex were busy grabbing wipes to clean the chocolate smeared around their mouths. A few hours after the incident, I vented to my mom about it. Instead of offering the empathy I expected, she turned the conversation around and told me that Chase and I may have been too harsh. Everyone makes mistakes, after all, and maybe we were being unfair to the babysitter. For context, it's not like we keep heaps of junk food in our home. In fact, we're pretty careful with snacks for the kids. At the moment, we only had a multi-pack of 8 chocolate bars and another of 6 packets of crisps. Nothing extravagant, just little treats now and then. The kids honestly aren't even that into junk food, but we keep a close eye on how much they eat, keeping treats as rare and special. But the trouble doesn't end at snacks. There's always a new challenge when it comes to co-parenting, even when I'm just trying to help. Chase's kid's bio mother, BKBM, recently got upset because she couldn't afford to get her son a Lego set, a fairly small one, 15 pounds, but out of her budget. When the kids came over to us, her son was in tears because he'd been refused the Lego set he wanted so much. He wanted to know why his mum never seems able to get him toys over 10 pounds. My heart broke a little for him, so I tried to calm him, telling him not to worry, that sometimes people can't afford nice things. I assured him I'd buy it for him, the money wasn't a problem for me. I took him to the store, let him choose the exact Lego set, and when he returned to his mum's, he brought it with him, beaming from ear to ear. According to her, he wouldn't stop talking about how much he loves me for buying him that toy, and she was furious. She accused me of trying to turn her son against her, poisoning his opinion of her because I could give him what she couldn't. No amount of gentle explanation seemed to help. I tried to say, again, that some people can't afford certain things and that's okay, but she insisted I was causing drama. She raised her voice in front of the kids about it, rather than talking with us privately like adults. I'd honestly only wanted to save her from feeling pressured to scrape together the money for the toy. She isn't truly broke, she's just not as comfortable as most, and I thought I was helping. Chase tried to mediate, saying we had no intention of causing trouble and could return the Lego if that would help, but that just made her angrier. So what, you want the kids to think I won't let them play with anything their dad and his girlfriend buy them, so they can hate me even more? She spat. I'm not falling for that. If you keep trying to pull that with me and try to turn the kids against me, there will be serious trouble. She said goodbye to the kids, voice tense, and left. After she stormed out, Chase's son asked, his eyes wide with worry, if he would get in trouble, or if he wasn't allowed to play with his new Lego set. Both Chase and I reassured him over and over that he was fine, that he could play with it whenever he wanted. And yet, now, the Lego sits untouched, he's too scared his mother will be upset. This isn't new. She has tried, more than once, to poison the kids' minds against us. The law even had to step in. She was warned clearly that if she tried to alienate the kids from us, she could be sued for parental alienation. Ironically, she tried to take us to court for the same thing and lost, so now she's bitter, watching for any excuse to accuse us again. All I really wanted was to lessen her financial burden and make her son's day with a little toy. Suddenly, I'm being labeled a bad co-parent and accused of overstepping. Was it really too much? Did I cross a line just by showing care and generosity? Amidst all this, we're preparing to go abroad in December so Chase and his children can visit family for Christmas. It'll be my first time traveling with a baby, the youngest, only 1 year old. As a grown-up, I'm 27, which adds its own mix of nerves and excitement. Even BKBM is coming, she's fine with the trip, and we took care of everything. Paid for her hotel, her ticket, even covering her plane fare, and Chase will be picking her up too. Sometimes, I wonder if trying to act kindly when money is involved can ever be simple in blended families like ours. Update 1. I thought I'd hit rock bottom with Jane's hatred and Willow's constant accusations, but apparently the universe had other plans. The trip to visit Chase's family for Christmas was supposed to be a fresh start, neutral territory where maybe, just maybe, we could all get along for the kids' sake. I should have known better. Everything started falling apart before we even got on the plane. At the airport, Jane threw an absolute fit when she realized Willow and I would be sitting near each other during the layover. Why does she have to be everywhere? She screamed, loud enough for half the terminal to stare. Willow tried to calm her down, but I could see that familiar look in her eyes, the one that said this was somehow my fault for existing. The flight itself was a nightmare. Jessica wouldn't stop crying, Alex kept asking when we'd get there every 5 minutes, and Jane spent the entire journey shooting daggers at me while whispering to Chelsea about how I ruined everything. I tried to help with the baby, but Jane immediately piped up, "Mummy should hold her, not you. You're not her real mummy." Chase's family welcomed us warmly enough, but I could sense the tension underneath. His mother, Sandra, was polite but distant. Clearly she'd heard about how Chase and I got together. His father barely acknowledged me. And then there was his sister, Rebecca, who seemed friendly enough at first. The real drama started on our third day there. Rebecca offered to take the kids to a local Christmas market while the adults had some downtime. It seemed innocent enough, she's their aunt, she loves them, and honestly, I was desperate for a break from Jane's constant hostility. Chase was exhausted, Willow seemed relieved, so we all agreed. They were supposed to be back by 6. 7 o'clock came and went. Then 8. Chase tried calling Rebecca, straight to voicemail. By 9, we were all in full panic mode. Chase was pacing, Willow was crying, and I felt this horrible pit in my stomach. Where were the children? At 9:47 p.m., Rebecca finally called back. "Oh, we're fine," she said, way too cheerfully. "The kids wanted to see the Christmas lights downtown, so we took a detour. They're having such a lovely time." In the background, I could hear Jane's voice clearly. "Tell Daddy we don't want to come back if she's there." My heart sank. Chase grabbed the phone from me, his face dark with anger. "Rebecca, bring them back now. You can't just disappear with our children without telling us where you are." But the damage was done. When they finally returned at nearly 11, Jane was triumphant. She'd spent hours with her aunt, who'd apparently listened to every complaint about me and agreed that I was the villain of the story. "Auntie Rebecca says you broke up our family too," Jane announced the moment she walked in. "She says Daddy should have stayed with Mummy." Chase went pale. "Rebecca, what the hell did you say to her?" "I just listened to the child," Rebecca replied defensively. "She's clearly struggling with all this upheaval. Maybe she has a point, maybe some relationships aren't meant to be forced." The room went dead silent. Willow looked shocked. She'd never expected Chase's own sister to take her side so publicly. Chase looked like he'd been slapped. And I felt like I was going to be sick. But then things got worse. Rebecca pulled Chase aside and dropped a bombshell that made my blood run cold. "I know you think you love her, but have you seen her phone lately? Sarah from back home sent me some interesting screenshots." My stomach dropped. Sarah, my old coworker from my previous job. We'd stayed in touch on social media, but barely. What could she possibly have sent Rebecca? Chase confronted me that night after everyone had gone to bed. His hands were shaking as he showed me his phone. Screenshots of Instagram DMs between me and my ex, Marcus, from 2 months ago. Messages I'd completely forgotten about, casual conversation that had turned slightly flirty. Nothing physical, nothing serious, just stupid, thoughtless responses to his compliments about how I looked in photos. "You said you missed me," Chase read aloud, his voice cracking. "You said if things were different, you'd want to see me again." "Chase, it was nothing," I whispered, but even as I said it, I knew how it looked. How it sounded. Here I was, the woman who'd broken up his family by having an affair, apparently flirting with another man behind his back. "How am I supposed to trust you?" he asked, and I could see years of doubt and pain in his eyes. "You left Willow for me. You lied to her for months. And now this?" I tried to explain, tried to tell him that the messages meant nothing, that I'd never physically cheated, that I loved him and only him. But the words sounded hollow even to me. Because the truth is, Marcus had been messaging me during a particularly hard week when Jane had been especially cruel, and for just a moment, I'd enjoyed the attention from someone who didn't see me as a homewrecker. The next morning, everything was different. Chase barely looked at me. Jane seemed to sense something had changed and was practically glowing with satisfaction. Even little Alex picked up on the tension and kept asking if I was sick because I looked sad. Willow cornered me while Chase was out with his parents. "I heard raised voices last night," she said quietly. "Everything okay?" For a moment, I almost told her everything. Almost confessed about the messages, about how lost I felt, about how maybe everyone was right and I was just a destructive person who ruined families. But instead, I just nodded and said we were fine. "You know," she continued, "Jane mentioned something interesting yesterday. She said Auntie Rebecca thinks you and Chase won't last." I looked at her, surprised by the almost gentle tone in her voice. "Willow, I'm not saying this to be cruel," she interrupted. "But maybe this is a sign. Maybe Jane's been trying to tell us all something important. Kids have instincts about these things." That afternoon, while packing for our flight home, I found Jane sitting alone in the garden, talking quietly to baby Jessica. For the first time in months, she wasn't glaring at me when I approached. "Jane," I said softly, "can we talk?" She looked up, and for just a second, I saw something different in her eyes. Not hatred, but sadness. Deep, soul-crushing sadness. "You're going to leave Daddy, aren't you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you ask that?" "Because that's what grown-ups do," she said matter-of-factly. "They say they love each other, and then they leave. Mummy thought Daddy would never leave, but he left. And now you're going to leave him too." I knelt down beside her, my heart breaking. "Jane, I don't want to leave your daddy." "But you will," she said with the certainty of a child who'd seen too much. "Everyone always leaves. That's why I don't like you. Because when you go, Daddy will be sad again, and Mummy will be sad, and we'll all be sad. So it's better if I just hate you now." As I sat there in that garden, holding baby Jessica while Jane's words echoed in my head, I realized something terrible. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was just delaying the inevitable. Maybe some families can't be fixed, no matter how hard you try. The flight home is tomorrow. Chase and I haven't spoken about the messages since that first night, but the silence between us says everything. Jane watches me with those knowing 8-year-old eyes, waiting for me to prove her right. And honestly, I'm starting to think she will be. Update 2. The flight home was the longest 8 hours of my life. Chase sat 3 rows away from me, apparently needing space to think, while I was stuck between Willow and a crying Jessica. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jane spent the entire flight whispering to Alex, occasionally glancing back at me with what I can only describe as satisfaction. She knew something had shifted, and she was savoring it. When we landed, Chase barely said 2 words to me during the drive home. The kids were exhausted and cranky, but even through their tiredness, I could feel Jane watching me in the rearview mirror. That night, after we'd gotten everyone settled, Chase finally spoke. "I need some time to figure things out," he said, not even looking at me. "Maybe you should stay at your sister's for a while." I wanted to fight it, to beg him to let me explain again, but honestly, I was exhausted. Exhausted from fighting Jane's hatred, from walking on eggshells around Willow, from constantly defending myself. So I packed a bag and left. That was 3 weeks ago. The first week was hell. I kept waiting for Chase to call, to say he'd made a mistake, that we could work through this. Instead, I got radio silence. My sister Emma tried to be supportive, but I could tell even she was getting tired of my drama. "Maybe this is for the best," she said one evening over wine. "You haven't been happy in months." She wasn't wrong. I'd been so focused on winning Jane over, on proving I deserved to be part of their family, that I'd lost sight of whether I actually wanted it anymore. Then, last Tuesday, everything changed again. I was at work when my phone rang. Willow's name flashed on the screen, and my heart stopped. She never called me directly, everything always went through Chase. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Can you meet me at the coffee shop on Mill Street? It's about Jane." An hour later, I found myself sitting across from the woman whose life I'd helped destroy, both of us nursing lattes and avoiding eye contact. Willow looked tired, more tired than I'd ever seen her. "Jane's been acting strange since we got back," she began. "Stranger than usual, I mean. She's been asking about you constantly. Where you are, when you're coming back, if you and Chase are getting divorced." "We're not married," I said automatically. "You know what I mean." Willow sighed. "The thing is, I think she's starting to panic. For months, all she wanted was for you to disappear. Now that you actually have, she's different." I frowned. "Different how?" "Clingy. Obsessed with making sure Chase is okay. She called him crying yesterday because she saw him looking sad while making breakfast. She's been having nightmares about everyone leaving." Willow paused. "I think she's realizing that hating you didn't actually fix anything." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Willow said something that nearly made me choke on my coffee. "I think you should come back." I stared at her. "What?" "Not because I like you," she added quickly. "I still think what you did was awful. But Jane, she needs stability. And whether I like it or not, you've become part of her world. Running away isn't teaching her how to handle difficult relationships, it's just confirming her worst fears about abandonment." Before I could respond, she continued. "Besides, Chase is miserable. He's been calling me every other day asking if I think he made the right decision. The man is falling apart, and the kids can see it." "What about the messages?" I asked quietly. Willow's expression softened slightly. "Look, I'm not going to pretend what you did wasn't hurtful. But if we're being honest, what you did with Marcus was nothing compared to what you and Chase did to me. And I survived that." She met my eyes. "The question is, do you actually want to be with Chase, or do you just want to win against me and Jane?" That night, I called Chase. He picked up on the first ring. "Willow says I should come home," I said without preamble. There was a long pause. Then, "Do you want to come home?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm tired, Chase. I'm tired of fighting for a place in a family that doesn't want me. I'm tired of being the villain in every story." "You're not the villain," he said quietly. "Jane thinks I am. Your sister thinks I am. Half the time, I think I am too." Another pause. Then, "She's been asking about you." "Jane, I mean, she made me a card yesterday. It said sorry for being mean on the front. Inside, she wrote that she hopes you're not sad and that she doesn't want you to go away forever like her hamster did." Despite everything, I felt tears pricking my eyes. "What did you tell her?" "That grown-up problems are complicated, but that we all love her and want her to be happy." He sighed. "She asked if loving someone means you have to forgive them when they make mistakes." I told her it does. "And what did she say?" "She said maybe she could try to love you a little bit, if you promise not to leave." That's when I broke down completely. Because here was this 8-year-old girl, this child I'd inadvertently traumatized, trying to figure out forgiveness while I was still struggling with it myself. "I messed up, Chase," I whispered. "With Marcus, with Jane, with all of it. I don't know if I know how to be part of a family." "Neither do I," he admitted, "but maybe we can figure it out together." So here I am, sitting in my car outside the house that might or might not still be my home, trying to work up the courage to walk through that door. Through the window, I can see Jane helping Alex with what looks like homework, and for the first time in months, the sight doesn't fill me with dread. Maybe Willow is right. Maybe running away doesn't teach anyone how to handle difficult relationships. Maybe the only way forward is through, messily, imperfectly, but together. I guess we're about to find out.